we have a lot more ability and a lot more resources than we often believe that we do. And as the great Scott Calloway has written, and I love this one, things are never as good as they seem, and things are never as bad as they seem. Okay? And that's perspective and point of view. And the thing that's keeping you, Michael, my friend, from going and doing the things that you say you want to do is probably more your perspective than your checkbook. Today's Desert Pencil webinar started out with me talking about the proposed changes to the webinar that'll start in about a month. These are ideas that I talked to offline with a few of our members about. Everybody was in agreement. I'll talk about those in the opening salvo of this edit. What happened after that was a couple of our members asked questions about retirement and being able to use some of the Desert Pencil tools to be able to look at their retirement in the aggregate so they can do the things they say they've always wanted to do with the money that they have. So it's a really good discussion. Most of what you'll see in here is just me responding to these questions, but I think this was a really great discussion, and that's what we had today in the Desert Pencil webinar. What I want to do is I want to step up my game a little bit doing the webinar. Now let me go back to the beginning, and I have a counter about all the emails I sent out, and this is like the 119th email I sent out. So I've been doing this for about 2.5 years, and the only one of you that's been with me since the beginning, I think, has been Kelly. So look at you go, girl. Yeah, and when I started doing it, it was kind of the tail end of COVID, and I was doing this and a video one every week. It was great, but it was just too much. Yeah, we'll get back to video soon, but everybody likes the money stuff, the Desert Pencil stuff, and I thought, well, you know, which child is going to die, you know? And I said, well, I got to set the video child aside for a while. So I did, and I just started doing this. And to be honest with you, I really had no intention. I had no expectations. I didn't know what was going to happen, which is a lot of how my life has been written. But you guys started showing up. You kept hanging around. I'm like, well, maybe we got something here. And, you know, it's like anything else. Some weeks are better than others. That's just the way that it goes. But as Chris really very aptly and intelligently pointed out, he goes, you're kind of a campfire guy. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I like bringing the group together. I like to have a place to hang out. And a part of that is you get to be the center of attention for a while. And when I first started teaching, you know, there's a lot of ego gratification standing in front of 100 eyeballs. But I've gotten older and that's changed. And I know that I still have to be the one that kind of starts the motor. But I try to be more of a facilitator. I know that I have to give information, but I also want to have a discussion. And so that leads me into the first element of what I'm hoping to create as we move forward. I'd like to put some structure around each one of these hour-long sessions so that it's in 3 pieces. Okay? So the first piece will be my opening salvo, and that'll bring the topic that I bring for the week. And I'll talk for like 10 minutes or something like that. And I'll bring some propaganda, I'll have a handout, that kind of thing. But as some of you know as recently as last night, one topic, okay? That's very important. I don't want to get too around the world in the weeds, as it were. So keep it on the one topic. That'll be section 1. Section 2 is we will Q&A that week's topic, whatever it might be, okay? And then the third section, which should be the remaining 20 to 30 minutes, I'd like to offer as a roundtable and an open mic for you guys to bring whatever you want. What do you got going on? What's your problem? What's your offering? What do you care about? Whatever. And, you know, if we have a lot of pregnant pauses, certainly I have enough bullets in my gun to fill in the blanks. You don't have to worry about that. But I want to offer that platform. Okay? So that's one element of what I want to do. The second element of what I want to do is I'd like to grow our group a little bit. Not a lot, but some. And I'd like to see us every week clocking it at somewhere between about 20 and 40 souls. something like that. You know, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm a little nervous about 40 people. That's a good problem to have. But I'd like to at least double our population from what it is now. Makes for a better discussion, you know, looks better, you know, all that stuff. Third thing, and I was thinking about this last night, my opening part, and I got part of this idea from Chris, is I really want to frame this presentation as kind of a mini class. You know, it's what I would call a lesson session. And I have enough content that I can deliver in like 10-minute bites that's okay. You know, I have a pretty vast reservoir of content, as many of you know, and just enough current events to talk about. I mean, I can do a 10-minute talk. That's not a problem. But I really want to focus on when you leave, you go, okay, I know something now that I didn't know when I showed up, something that can help me. And that's going to be my focus as I move forward. Okay? All right. The next part I want to talk about, and I do want your feedback about this, and I have talked to a couple of you about it already. If I have an intention of scaling, and I do, I've been writing these new classes, and you know, this will be my last round of doing this. This would be the 8th revision and edition of Does It Pencil in 35 years I've been doing this. I need to put some kind of a separation between the general public that's just trolling and binging and showing up, which is great. I do that too. You guys do that. It's just part of, you know, living in the world we live with the internet and all that kind of thing. But I want to have a firewall where I say, but if you do this, you get other goodies, okay? And so my proposal is this. And this would start probably in April, I think. Maybe March, but probably April. I video all of these. They take a lot of time to edit, which I'm going to work on being more efficient at. But I do video all of them, as you know. So all that exists. And I just finished editing 7 of them, the first 7 of this year, and I'll show you where those are and how you get into them. But what I'm proposing moving forward, again, probably in April, maybe March, but probably April, is that if you want to show up, you want to be a part of our group, and you want to see the videos, and you want to have access to the handout materials, it's $5 a month. Okay? That's a pretty low bar. I think that's an excellent deal. Additionally, all of the video will be available on audio. And I'm going to show you an example of that today as well. That will be always available to the public. I'm going to convert those into videos. They'll just have a logo. You'll only be able to hear them. Don't get to see anything. Don't get any of the goodies. Don't see the lessons. Don't get the handouts. But you can consume the audio if you want to. And I'm going to make that free for the public. Okay? One comment I got this morning from Mercedes was, I originally thought, okay, well, once I get this all set up, if you want to come and check it out, I'll give you a day for free. And she's like, a day for free? Hell, you ought to make it a month for free if you want to get them really hooked. So I think that was a good idea. So everybody who's new gets a month for free, and then it's $5 a month, and you can drop out at any time. Okay? So I think what that does is a few things, this idea. One is it steps it up a little bit for me, more on my game. Not that I'm not on my game, but I'll just be a little sharp, a little more focused, a little more structured. Secondly, it gives me a way to scale without giving it away. And when you're in the content creation business, and I mean, ever since the internet first came out, this has always been a conundrum and a question. What do you give away? What do you sell? You know, and value add and all that kind of thing, which I'm not going to talk to you about today, but it's a thing. And I'll just leave it at that. And then the third piece is getting a little bit of money so that I can get some help in doing the production of all this stuff, you know, because it takes a hell of a lot of time to do this. And I'm been okay up until now doing it, but I'm pretty taxed for time and I need some help to do this, and they have to be paid, as you know. So a little bit in the offering cup, I think, is reasonable, as long as I'm still, you know, throwing down and you guys are getting something out of this. But it's always the same thing. It's fear. Okay? That's we don't make decisions based on numbers. Human organisms make decisions based on emotion. Okay? So if you're living in fear, I'm just going to use that word because it's simpler. I'm not labeling you. But, what is the antonym of fear? Well, it's confidence. Okay, so let's talk about confidence for a second. What are some of the hallmarks of confidence? Well, knowing your numbers, having information, certainty. See, fear comes from uncertainty. It's one of the reasons for it. Like, what will happen if? And so the natural response is, well, I better not do anything or the saber-tooth is going to eat me. Okay, I mean, that's just baked into our chicken brain back here DNA. All right, but we have this thing now, the frontal cortex, which allows us to do cognitive functions and thinking and stuff like that. So without getting into numbers, because I don't want to do that, what I would encourage you and your wife to do is go, okay, this is our pot. This is what we got. Okay, and that's pretty easy to ascertain. The second thing that I would look at is, what is the rate of return that you're earning on your pot? Okay, now that is does it pencil stuff. And there's two ways to measure it: appreciation and cash flow. So if you have rental properties or you're getting dividends, interest, things of that nature, that's cash flow. And the metric we use to measure that in Does It Pencil is cash on cash. Okay. The other thing is appreciation. Okay. So that's when the asset was worth this and it's worth that. As a general rule, where you are in your life and I'm in my life, because I just made my 64th lap around the sun last week, we should probably be more, thank you, we should probably be more focused on income than we are in appreciation, okay, as a general rule.
Yep.
Okay. I talked to a guy yesterday who is a rep that I work with in my little manufacturing company, my sewing business. This guy, I mean, I've known him for almost 40 years. He knew my mom. I'm like, whoa. So he's been around for a while. Smart guy, great salesman. I knew he was a couple years older than me, and I said, Kevin, how old are you? And he goes, I'm 60, he said he's 67 and a half. I go, well, have you started taking your Social Security yet? And he goes, oh, no, I can't do that because I'm still working. I go, yeah, you can. You've hit your FRA. He goes, what's my FRA? I go, your full retirement age. And when you hit that, you can take your Social Security and still work, and there's no offset like if you were below age 67. And he goes, well, my certified financial planner CPA doop-de-doop-de-doo says I can't do that. And I go, I said, Kevin, you heard about this AI stuff? It's crazy. Just go to the AI and ask it. Start with that, okay? And I said, I never tell anybody, student or a client, if your person with a license says this is the way it is, I'm not going to disagree with them. However, I want you to take this information to them and to see what they say. Okay, now that's a little bit of a sidebar, but my point is, he can be increasing his cash flow right now by about $4,000 a month. And he got bad advice. Now, what will happen is his benefit, and this applies to all of us, will appreciate at 8% per year until the mandatory withdrawal age, which I believe is 70 and a half. Is that right? You have to start taking it then? Something like that.
72.
72? Okay.
Yeah, depending on when you were born, it's either 72 or 73.
Well, they usually trigger those things off your birthday. And I might have been thinking about IRA distributions being mandatory as opposed to Social Security. But nonetheless, that's a story about a guy who doesn't have a level of confidence because he's not operating, in my limited opinion, I don't know his whole story, but doesn't have accurate information. Okay, so I'm getting back to you on this, Michael. I'm saying, on the one hand, in your human space, your emotional space with you and your wife, you're like, oh shit, we want to go do all this stuff. We've been making all this money and saving, and we have these plans. And now you can. And you're like, oh, I don't know if we should because we might run out of money. That's a math problem. That is a resolvable math problem. So figure out, this is what's in our pot. This is how much we have. This is the rate of return we're earning on our cash flow. And this is the rate of return we're earning on our appreciation. Those are the two basic legs to the stool, okay? Now, there's a third thing that you can do. I don't know if you've ever done this. I did it about 10 months ago. Get a financial plan. Have somebody do it. It's a couple $100. It's a pretty good investment in clarity, in your confidence, which will offset your fear. Okay? I want you to go to the North Pole in January. It'll make you happy. Wouldn't make me happy, but it would make you happy. Yeah, well, we've talked about this, Michael, and I don't think you have to stop working. But your question was, how can I use Does It Pencil in my own life? And I'm saying, figure out your cash on cash return and figure out the rate of appreciation on your assets. Okay, so about like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I did a thing with you guys where I talked about the appreciation, not the cash flow, but the appreciation in 2025 of 3 different asset classes. I did real estate, I did the stock market, and I did metals. Okay, metals did the best, stocks did middle, real estate did worst in terms of general overall market appreciation subject to pockets of neighborhoods. Okay, but my point is, those measurements exist, and you should measure against them. You know, I've told you guys, I don't have all my money in the markets, but I have a pretty good chunk of it because I'm a believer in the U.S. economy. And last year was pretty great, but there was a segment of my portfolio that did not perform as well as I wanted it to. And so I had a talk with my guy, because sometimes I need to talk to somebody too. I mean, I don't know everything. I need therapy as much as we all do. But we had this conversation and I went, I think I'm more punk rock than Lawrence Welk, and I still am. So I'm going to pull out of these bonds that were doing pretty well. I mean, they're making over 8.5%. That's pretty good for a bond right now. But, there's this private equity thing over here that's coming out, and it could make like 20%. Now, that's a difference between cash flow and appreciation. Okay, there's 2 different measurements of performance. But I'm thinking, I don't need the money right now. I'd rather grow it. So when I, take my last lap, everybody that comes to Does It Pencil webinar is going to get a big Costco bonus check. You guys don't know that yet, but that's what I'm really saving up for. And I'm really glad you brought this up, because you are a couple years older than me, and that's fine. But we all get to this point where you're like, I got this money. What the hell? I mean, if I got it and I got the time and I'm healthy enough, the idea is go do your thing. Here's a story I'll share with you, a short story. It's kind of tragic, but it's part of the book of my life. The last time I saw my dad was 35 years ago, I think. And he was 53 and he was laying on his floor and he was naked and he was dead. 53. And that was a real turning point for me in my life, because the last conversations I had with him were, he really his whole thing was, and he was an insurance man, corporate guy, local corporation, but he lived to go to Hawaii. That was his thing. 2 weeks here in Hawaii. That was like his whole thing. Somebody's got to mute. There we go. And I said, well, Dad, why don't you just go live in Hawaii? He died like 3 days later. And my grandmother, his mother, who this was right before my dad passed, the last time I saw her, which I'm not going to tell the story because I'll start crying, but she said, I've always wanted a Cadillac. And I thought, well, you guys have money. Why don't you just get one? I was like 22 or 23. She died like a week later. So those are stories from my past. So my point is this, okay? And this is an important point. We need to remember this as we're contemplating these decisions at our moment in life. Conveyor belt ends. Okay? It does. There's no do-overs. People don't regret what they do. People regret what they don't do. It's well documented.
Joe, I regret a lot of things I've done.
Well, I guess you could die now. I don't know what you want me to say. Thanks for showing up, Chris. It was a good life.